Exposed, Millionaire returns to discover incredible truth. Mother begging for food after 10 years. Jason Mitchell stepped onto the cracked pavement of his childhood neighborhood, soaked in memories that had faded like the peeling paint on the houses around him. After a decade in Silicon Valley, he had envisioned a triumphant return, a chance to reconnect with family and invest in his roots. The thrill of reunion buzzed in his veins, but it vanished in an instant. The sight of his mother Linda on the street, hunched over with desperation, begging for food, pierced him to his core. Panic unfurled within him. Wasn't she the woman who had given everything to lift him above this life? His success now felt like a venomous curse. His heart raced as he struggled to reconcile what he saw with the life he'd long pursued. The very streets that had nurtured him were now haunted with decay and despair. Old friends had vanished. The vibrancy he once knew was lost to the cracks in the sidewalks where he once played. There was a dizzying weight of betrayal hanging in the air, his own mother, a beacon of strength, reduced to this. He curled his fingers around his phone, aware that it could connect him to his world of influence, yet it felt foreign here. What had he escaped, and at what cost? A gnawing guilt reared its head, whispering that every triumph he had celebrated was on the back of the struggles he had left behind. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Determined not to retreat, Jason sought answers. He navigated the neighborhood, now a shadow of its former self. Each face he recognized bore witness to the decline. Their familiar smiles faded, replaced by hardened expressions of survival. It stung, peeling back layers of privilege he'd adorned himself with. He was haunted by the echoes of his childhood dreams, realizing they were built atop foundations he had been blissfully ignorant of. The systemic injustices that had dug into the lives surrounding him were now a relentless wave crashing over his conscience. Amidst this turmoil, he encountered Rachel, a fiercely passionate social worker dedicated to rekindling hope within the community. Her raw energy sparked something within him. As they collaborated on initiatives to provide food and solace to those in need, he began to comprehend the delicate balance of striving for success while honoring his roots. But the more he involved himself, the sharper the pangs of regret hit. Each act of kindness brought fleeting hope, but buried deeper the question that gnawed at his insides. What was true success when he had allowed his own mother to suffer? Just as clarity began to dawn, a call shattered his fragile resolve. Breathing irregularly, he listened as a voice revealed secrets of betrayal within his family that twisted like a blade. His mother's struggles might not be entirely her own, and with that revelation, turmoil swept through him. Could he find her dignity again before it slipped through his fingers? Racing against time, he felt the urgency of his newfound determination collide violently with a fear he had never faced before. What if he couldn't save her? The tangled web of his family's past held dark entanglements, and he was only beginning to grasp their depths. Jason stood frozen, the weight of the call still reverberating through his mind. He felt unsettled, caught between two worlds, the life he had meticulously crafted and the painful realities he now faced. The thought of his mother, reduced to begging, drove spikes of regret deeper into his psyche. How could the woman who shaped his aspirations be so neglected? As he paced the now familiar streets, each step felt like a confrontation with the ghosts of his past. The mantra he had clung to in the tech world, progress through achievement, now felt hollow. The drive that had once propelled him forward now demanded introspection, a reckoning with the pain he had ignored. There was power in that recognition, yet it also paralyzed him with uncertainty. Jason found himself in front of the old town diner, its neon sign flickering like his resolve. Memories flooded back, family breakfasts, laughter that rang off the walls, a time when life felt safe and predictable. He thought about Rachel's burning passion for change. He had initially dismissed her enthusiasm, but now it felt like the lifeboat he desperately needed. He resolved to reach out to her, hoping her relentless determination might guide him through the murky waters ahead. Cursing his cowardice, he pulled out his phone. He hesitated, letting the weight of the betrayal seep into his resolve. Would she judge him for his upbringing, for his neglect? Gathering his strength, he composed a text and hit send, as if it would somehow answer the growing turmoil within. I need to talk. Can we meet? A mere minutes passed before a response appeared. Absolutely. How soon? In that moment, he recognized the extraordinary potential for change, both for his mother and himself. He could not undo the past. However, he could confront it and strive to create a future where he would not repeat the mistakes that haunted him. At their meeting, Rachel's eyes were alight with purpose, and Jason explained his intentions. I want to align my skills with what this community truly needs. I want to be part of the solution. But first, I need to understand, truly understand, the issues at play here. With every word he spoke, his conviction strengthened. Rachel nodded in agreement, her excitement palpable. They began sketching out a plan, weaving Jason's resources with her tangibly grassroots approach. Each idea sparked connections, unraveling new possibilities. Yet beneath the surface of their burgeoning strategy, unease lingered like shadows in the recesses of his mind. His mother's plight loomed larger. He had to confront whatever secrets had emerged from their family turmoil. What were the hidden betrayals that led to her current state? Jason felt the urgency tighten around his chest. He had stepped into a role he'd never anticipated, but he could not falter. As he delved further into his mother's past and their shared history, he discovered troubling conflicts and missed opportunities. Determined to face the truth, he realized he would have to confront family dynamics and unresolved issues. The harsh reality was dawning on him. Facing the past was the only way to reshape the future. But as he prepared for those difficult conversations, a new challenge emerged. A stranger appeared on the periphery, lurking with an unsettling familiarity, and he felt the undeniable pull of fear. Who were they, and what looming threat did they represent from the shadows of his family's history? The path forward was destabilizing, yet laden with the promise of redemption. Would Jason find the strength to unravel the complexities of his family's past while supporting his mother's fight for dignity, or would he unravel in the process? Jason felt the weight of his decision hanging in the air, filling the silence around him with its oppressive gravity. The stranger, unfamiliar yet hauntingly reminiscent, loomed in his mind like an unwelcome spectre. Who were they? What was the risk of untangling the obscured threads of his family's history? As doubts gnawed at his resolve, he understood that confronting his mother's past demanded unwavering courage. Days passed, each one punctuated by fleeting moments of clarity interspersed with profound confusion. He immersed himself in conversations with Rachel, yet the spectre continued to menace his thoughts, surfacing in quiet moments. He needed to act, and quickly. Their collaborative project began to take form, focusing on restoring the dignity his mother, and others like her, had been stripped of. Each meeting buzzed with enthusiasm, yet a shadow clung to Jason, reminding him of the urgent reality he couldn't shake. It was in a quiet cafe, much like the diner of his youth, that he broached the subject of family with Rachel. The coffee's steam swirled in the air between them, an embodiment of the emotions he wrestled to articulate. I need to dig deeper into my mother's story, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I need to understand what led us all here. Rachel's expression shifted from excitement to concern. You're sure? It might unravel more than you anticipate. Family secrets can be messy. I have to know. His declaration hung heavy in the small space, punctuated by the narrowing of his eyes, as he braced for the potential fallout of his investigations. As they delved into a list of resources, Jason's mind remained active, contemplating the strides he'd made. He had carved a space for himself among those seeking change, but the dual path he now tread felt increasingly precarious. Each action toward redemption was tinged with fear. How deep did the roots of his family's struggles run? His hesitance was overridden by an undeniable urge to reclaim agency, not only within his mother's struggle, but also over his own life. Each evening, he scoured through public records, searching for names and answers. With each new piece of information, he questioned his assumptions and reevaluated everything. He thought he understood about legacy and loyalty. One evening, tucked away in the corner of his apartment, he stumbled across a series of newspaper clippings that sent chills racing down his spine. "Local woman aids homeless mother," read the headline. It referenced his mother, her photograph showcasing a visage haunted by hardship. Anger and disbelief intertwined in his chest. How had he not known? Why hadn't anyone told him? His fingers trembled as he pressed deeper into the article. Scanning the fine print, he found mentions of community programs his mother had been involved in, a stark contrast to the position he now found her in. Each discovery was a stab at his conscience. The revelation ignited an ember of resolve within Jason. He was determined to move beyond guilt, sparking a surge to confront the stranger who had lingered like a shadow in his mind. Who did they represent? Did they hold the key to understanding the hidden fractures in his family? He could no longer sit back and let fear dictate his actions. With his heart racing, he picked up his phone. Perhaps confronting both the stranger and the past would provide answers, leading him closer to the redemption he sought for his mother and himself. As he prepared to reach out to the stranger, Jason wondered just how deep the truth could run. What revelations awaited him on the other side of this confrontation? The moment of discovery was drawing near. Jason's thumb hovered over the screen, his heart thundering against his ribs as he debated whether to call the stranger. The phrase "local woman" echoed in his mind, carrying a weight heavier than he had anticipated. Who was this person, really? There was no guarantee they would want to speak to him, nor any certainty about what he would uncover. Each moment stretched like an elastic band pulled taut between fear and determination. Taking a deep breath, he pressed the call button, the sound of the ringing tone amplifying his sense of unease. He steeled himself for what lay ahead. The line connected, and he heard the faint static on the other end, a reminder that he wasn't alone in this. "Hello?" The voice was gravelly, seasoned, a touch wary but somehow familiar. "Hi, this is Jason. Jason Carter." His words stumbled out, raw and unfiltered. "Carter? As in, my mother. I need to talk about her, about what happened." A long pause hung between them, saturated with uncertainty. Finally, the stranger spoke. "You don't know what you're asking for, son." Jason clenched his jaw at the admonition. "I understand enough. I need to hear the truth." With that, the stranger reluctantly agreed to meet. A time and place were set, and as the conversation unfolded, Jason felt the dread of impending revelations build like a storm cloud hovering above. How would he manage the truth when he wasn't even clear about his own feelings? As he prepared for the meeting, Jason turned to Rachel, seeking her insight. They met in the same cafe that had birthed their collaborative efforts, but this time the atmosphere was different. It felt heavy with possibilities and the weight of unspoken fears. "Are you sure you want this?" Rachel asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "I have to know. If I don't confront this now, it will always hang over me." His voice was steadier than it felt, underscoring a resolve that had been absent before. Rachel nodded, an understanding flickering in her eyes, though he could see the tension still coiling around her, like a coiled snake ready to strike. Jason spent the evening pacing his apartment, replaying imagined scenarios of the meeting in his mind. What if the stranger revealed something that shattered him? What if the truth was uglier than he anticipated? Yet he knew that not knowing was far worse than facing the fears that loomed ahead. The day arrived, and he stood outside a small diner that echoed his childhood memories. Cheap coffee, greasy burgers, and the family ties that had once been the center of his world. He hesitated for a moment, the familiarity anchoring him, but he pressed forward, pushing the door open with purpose. Inside he spotted the stranger immediately, a man with a weathered face and eyes that spoke of countless stories untold. Jason's heart hammered in his chest, each step toward the booth feeling heavier than the last. "Jason?" the man greeted, an ironic twist of a smile appearing briefly across his lips before it vanished. "Thank you for meeting me," Jason replied, sliding into the seat opposite the man. Truth isn't a simple thing, the stranger warned, leaning forward, his tone shifting from guarded to grave. Are you ready for what you might find? Jason's stomach lurched. I may not have a choice. I need to hear about my mother, and whoever you are in this story. As the conversation began to peel back layers of history and pain, Jason felt the tension of years of buried secrets inch toward the surface. Memories, values, and grievances intertwined, leaving him wrestling with the very fabric of his identity and his mother's legacy. But just as the first thread of truth began to unravel, the man leaned back, crossing his arms. Before I tell you anything, tell me, what do you think she deserves? The question hung heavy in the air, forcing Jason to confront not only his mother's past, but his own beliefs about forgiveness, redemption, and the weight of family ties. In that moment, the stakes intensified. What if uncovering the story meant shattering his memories of her? What if the truth exposed demons he wasn't prepared to face? As Jason prepared to respond, he felt the pang of a deeper revelation clawing its way to the surface. The moment of truth was approaching, and he had to decide if he was strong enough to confront whatever lay ahead. Jason's mind raced, the weight of the man's question bearing down on him. What did his mother deserve? Perhaps more than anything, she deserved understanding. But did that mean absolving her for choices he couldn't yet fathom? His instincts fought against a revelation he sensed was coming, an uncharted territory of emotions he had long suppressed. What if his entire life had been built on a facade, a narrative shaped by his longing for a connection he had scarcely known? I think she deserves honesty, he replied, his voice steadying with each utterance. We all make mistakes, but we need to face them. I need to know why she walked away. His personal conviction flared like a flame newly stoked, illuminating shadows that threatened to engulf him. The man studied him intently. Honesty is a heavy burden, Jason. Your mother made her choices, for better or worse. What you believe you know might collapse. Are you prepared for that? Jason's thoughts raced, images of his mother's laughter, the warmth of her embrace coiling around his memories like ivy. But beneath that nostalgia lay the bitter tang of abandonment. The man before him wasn't just a stranger. He was a gatekeeper of truths that could unravel the very fabric of Jason's life. Tell me, Jason urged, desperation threading through his voice. I have to know. The stranger leaned closer, the diner buzzing around them fading into a murmur, creating an almost cocoon-like silence. Your mother wasn't just a victim of her circumstances. She had dreams and nightmares. You need to grasp the full scope of what led her to abandon everything, even you. As those words hung in the air, Jason could feel the ground beneath him shifting. Dreams shattered by desperation. It was a narrative he had always avoided, unwilling to accept that his mother might be a flawed human being rather than a paragon. The quest to learn her truth morphed into a confrontation with his own ideals of love, healing, and resentment. Tell me what happened, Jason demanded, his resolve hardening. I won't turn away. That's the kind of honesty that's earned, the man replied, a spark of respect in his eyes. But remember, honesty comes with understanding. Are you truly ready? Jason nodded, pressing his fingers against the cool surface of the table as if anchoring himself to the moment. He felt a rush of tumultuous emotions, a mixture of eagerness and dread. There was no turning back now. There had never been an easy way through his past. You want the truth about your mother? He could see the stranger's eyes twinkling with a flicker of foreboding. It starts with a choice she made years ago, one that set everything in motion, a choice about love, betrayal, and the cost of both. Each word from the man resonated within him, merging past reality with the promise of painful revelations. His stomach knotted, yet a current of apprehension and anticipation thrummed through his veins, urging him to dig deeper. How can I ever forgive her if I don't understand? Jason asked, the sincerity echoing in the diner cramped with memories of comfort food and childhood. Forgiveness isn't your only path, the stranger replied. Sometimes, understanding means letting go, not only of the past but of what you envisioned for the future. Suddenly, Jason was no longer just a son searching for answers. He found himself on the brink of a monumental shift in perception. Clarity promised to cut through the chaos of grief and abandonment. As the man began to recount stories laced with sorrow and complexity, Jason braced himself. He knew he needed to rise to the challenge, to accept that even the most painful truths could pave the way for healing. But shadows swirled in the back of his mind, all those hidden cracks threatening the facade of his life. What lay ahead could offer illumination or darkness, but he had to know. As the stranger's story unfolded, Jason's breath caught at the mention of a surprising name. The man who once held the pieces of his mother's heart. The realization struck like a thunderclap. Was Jason prepared to confront the ill-fated love that had unknowingly shaped his existence? Taking another steadying breath, Jason felt poised on the edge of transformative insight, knowing the answers could render him forever changed. Heartbreak or hope. The story spilled forth like a river breaking free from a dam, filled with twists and turns that Jason could hardly anticipate. Each fact revealed by the stranger pulled him deeper into the swirling undercurrents of his mother's life, one that had remained shrouded in mystery for far too long. The words painted a picture of a woman he had idolized, now transformed into a flawed hero rife with heartbreak and strife. She fell in love with a man named David, the stranger began, eyes fixed on Jason, gauging his reaction. A man who offered her promises of stability, of a life filled with dreams fulfilled, but his heart was shadowed. He was a man of ambition, yet he had demons of his own, dragging her deeper into a world that was toxic. Jason felt a cold shiver race down his spine. The name resonated in his memory, a name dropped here and there in vague conversations at family dinners. Manners and courtiness had obscured reality, leaving him with fragments of knowledge that now felt deceitful in their simplicity. What kind of demons? Addiction? Lies? It was a fatal pull, he responded, his tone melding empathy with stark observation. She was caught in a whirlpool of his promises, each day luring her further away from those who genuinely cared for her. Jason's mind spun with images of the home he'd occupied, one where nostalgia clung to every corner. He had never imagined that his reality could have been forged from such chaos. "And she chose him over me?" he asked, anger coiling in his chest, battling against a sorrow he didn't want to feel. "She thought she had to choose," the stranger said quietly, his arms folded as though he carried the weight of the world. The desire to escape her own past was powerful. It led her to believe that leaving you would protect you from the turmoil she was ensnared in. But Jason had never wanted to be protected from the truth. The days without her had filled him with unquenchable doubt and gnawing loneliness. The void she had left had scarred him, filling his childhood with resentment and speculation. So what happened? The man straightened, the shadows of the diner swirling around them. The tale doesn't end there. Love is a double-edged sword. As David spiraled further into his demons, your mother realized her choices kept echoing profoundly through her life. Until that moment, she had not acknowledged that love could be suffocating. She had become lost, not just to you, but to herself. Jason's heart raced. He was grasping at the frayed threads of their shared history. The revelation of his mother as a person, a complex, struggling individual, brought an unexpected sense of kinship he had never anticipated. Yet the thought of her suffering added layers of complexity to his feelings of abandonment. "What did she do then?" he pushed, urgency creeping into his tone. He felt the need to understand, to wrestle with the images flooding his mind of a woman he had only known as a memory. "She fled," the stranger replied. "But fleeing isn't just about distance, it's about denial. She chose to sever ties not only with you but with the parts of herself that clung to their previous lives. It was the worst decision she could have made." The words echoed painfully in Jason's mind. As he leaned over the table, his heart raced in tandem with his thoughts. "What did she dream of?" he asked, desperate to grasp the essence of the woman behind the choices, to uncover the dreams that had propelled her into pathways marked by heartbreak. The stranger hesitated, locking eyes with Jason. She dreamed of freedom, a life where she could reclaim her identity without chains holding her back. Yet freedom often comes with a price, the kind that can leave scars deeper than the burdens we bear. Jason felt a pang resonate in his chest at that statement, powerfully articulating the very essence of his own internal struggle. Torn between the complex woman who was his mother and the emotions her choices awakened, he recognized a painful parallel. As the room swirled around him, he began to question everything: his perceptions, his judgments, and the depth of compassion he was willing to extend to a woman he longed to understand. "I need to find her," he declared, a sudden wave of determination overtaking him. But as soon as he spoke those words, a sense of dread washed over him. What if the confrontation opened more wounds than it healed? What if she didn't want to be found? The stranger leaned closer, urgency thrumming in his voice. "Before embarking on that path, you must ask yourself, are you ready to confront not only her choices, but your own feelings? The truth, once confronted, cannot be untangled." Jason's heart raced with both trepidation and eagerness. The need for resolution loomed in his mind, battling against the fears that lingered on the periphery. What if unearthing the past shattered what fragile understanding he had managed to forge within himself? With that thought echoing in his mind, he braced himself, knowing he was on the precipice of irrevocable change. Would the journey lead to healing, or would it only open a new chasm forged from confronting truths long buried? The decisions lay ahead, heavy with implications that would seal his fate. He could no longer wait. The time had come to face not only a mother he had scarcely known, but the very essence of his own being. Jason left the diner feeling as if a storm had brewed inside him, raging between the desire to find his mother and the paralysis of fear that shrouded his resolve. The weight of the newfound knowledge sank heavily on his shoulders as he stepped into the humid evening air. The smell of wet asphalt filled his nostrils. The sky was overcast, mirroring the tumult inside him. Each tentative breath felt laced with uncertainty. He didn't just need to find her. He needed to confront the bewildering swirl of emotions that this stranger had coaxed into being. A tangle of anger, sadness, and surprising empathy twisted within him. Was it even right to seek her out? Would she welcome him, or would he be confronted with a ghost of a woman distanced not just by years but by choices that had irrevocably changed her? Jason's mind raced as he navigated through the dimly lit streets, his feet moving with the certainty of purpose despite his heart's hesitance. The stranger's words lingered in the quiet despair. "The truth enters with a force that cannot be contained." He barely noticed the cadence of his footfalls against the pavement, feeling the vibrations resonate through him as if signaling a call to action. Hours later, he found himself standing before a weathered apartment building. The urban landscape felt alien under the flickering streetlights. This was no longer the idealized image of home he had clung to. Each crack in the concrete whispered tales of abandonment, remnants of lives left behind. As he ascended the worn flight of stairs to the second floor, dread coiled in his stomach, suffocating his bravado. Would she see him as a reminder of everything she fled, as an embodiment of choices that led her to this life? Or, perhaps worse, would she have moved on completely? A stranger with no intention of reconnection. He hesitated outside her door, the chipped paint churning memories of childhood dreams and buried fears. But the thought of leaving without discovering her reality kept him rooted there, the wood cold beneath his palm. He knocked, the sound echoing strangely in the stillness. A moment passed, stretching until it felt unbearable. Then footsteps approached. The door creaked open, revealing a woman whose image matched the hazy photographs in his mind, yet presented a stark reality that left him breathless. "Jason?" Her voice quivered, rich with disbelief and adorned with the passage of time that had both aged and softened her features. Then came the culmination of years lost, threading surprise with trepidation. He saw the shadows under her eyes, the lines etched upon her face, and for the first time he confronted the truth. This was not the woman he had built up in his memory. This was someone weighed down by choices, dreams deferred, and haunting regrets. "Mom," he breathed, vulnerability spilling forth. "I needed to know. Why?" The silence stretched painfully as fearful eyes searched his. He felt every second erupt with unspoken emotions, the anger, the longing, and the gnawing hunger for understanding twisted into a single sharp question. Was love ever enough? Jason's heart hammered as she struggled to speak, a myriad of possibilities unfurling before him. Here was an opportunity for connection, a reckoning, yet the spectre of her past loomed large, ready to drown the fragile hope blooming within him. In that moment, he realized that finding her was not about reclaiming his past, but understanding how her choices had shaped his own identity. Could he step back from the anger, step toward forgiveness? Would they both be able to heal from the wounds etched into their lives? As the weight of his truth, his desire to understand, pressed upon him, he extended his hand, teetering on the edge of profound transformation. Would this moment become a bridge to reconciliation, or merely reinforce the chasm they both had carved apart? The night held its breath in anticipation, as her gaze flickered from his eyes to the life behind her and back again, poised perfectly between revelation and realization. More choices lay ahead, each demanding honesty and courage, each poised to unravel the desires they both nurtured in isolation. Yet uncertainty hung in the air, thick and inevitable. Could a future truly exist, forged between two souls so keenly severed? In that breath-catching instant, Jason prepared himself for answers that could rip through the fabric of his very identity. Jason stood before her, hand outstretched, uncertainty crystallizing in the air like static electricity. Every breath felt laden with anticipation, as if the universe were batedly waiting for their next move. The warmth of his palm was a stark contrast to the chilling fear that raced inside him. Despite the uncertainty of where their conversation might lead, he understood that this encounter was about more than just understanding her choices. It was also about defining who he had become in her absence. "Mom," he repeated softly, the word hanging in the air like a fragile balloon, vulnerable and poised to pop at any moment. I need to know why you left." Her expression faltered, flickering between recognition and regret. "I didn't want to hurt you," she whispered, her voice trembling as though it might shatter under the weight of the truth. In that instant, Jason found himself grappling not just with her words, but with the remnants of a childhood overshadowed by abandonment. A tempest of emotions churned within him. He could feel the anger gnawing at his insides, fighting against this burgeoning need for understanding. Why couldn't she just say what he needed to hear? "Did you even think about me?" he challenged, his voice rising involuntarily. Jason hated the heat coursing through him, the way it threatened to engulf rationality. If he let that anger consume him, would any possibility of a connection just slip away into the ether? He fought to contain it, yet the question escaped his lips with the urgency of a shout. "I did. Every day," she implored, stepping closer, desperation etched in her features. "But sometimes leaving was the only way I knew how to survive." Her admission rolled over him in waves, the clarity of her pain piercing through the fog of his anger. He was starting to see her not just as the ghost from his past, but as a real person, complex and flawed. The realization that both of their lives had been molded by choices brought him a fresh perspective. But it wasn't enough. That fracture in his heart needed tending. Jason shifted his footing, grounding himself. "But you could have tried harder. You could have made different choices. Do you know how hard it is to face your mistakes?" she retorted softly, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Every single day I've lived with the consequences of my decisions, but the hardest part is knowing I left you with nothing but questions. I thought I was protecting you." His mind raced. Protecting him from what? The raw vulnerability of the exchange forced him to re-examine his own evolution. Had he really become stronger, or had he built walls so high that the echoes of his childhood were muffled? What did he truly want now? Jason took a deep breath, gauging the possibility of forgiveness warming like a fragile ember in his chest. "You were my mother, and I needed you then," he said, the edges of his voice softening. "But I need you now, too. Can we try to be a family again?" Her expression shifted, the uncertainty mirrored in her eyes compelling and daunting. Jason could see inner conflict reflected back at him, like a mirror revealing the fractures in both their lives. This wasn't just about her past mistakes. It was about reconciling their futures together. The moment seemed to stretch infinitely, as hope began to bloom between them, tentative and precious. Yet the silence that followed felt like an echo of a broader question. Could they truly navigate their history together? So many bridges remained to be built, yet so much lay in the unspoken crevices of regret and fear. Jason's heart raced with the weight of this possibility. As they stood on the precipice of a new chapter, he wondered whether what light might find its way through the cracks of their fractured relationship would be enough to illuminate darkened corners in both their lives. In that profound stillness, the paths of their potential intertwined, inviting a myriad of responses to collide with hope. Would they take the leap together, or would the same fears that pushed them apart keep them adrift once more? With that thought, Jason realized the moment of reckoning had only just begun. What lay ahead was not just about reconciling a past, but also about forging a future, one choice at a time. Would the next decision bring them closer, or drift them apart again? Jason's heart began to race as he watched his mother's expression shift. The silence stretched uncomfortably between them, thick with unspoken fears and unresolved emotions. He felt the flicker of hope colliding with the weight of resentment still lodged in his throat. What if he was only setting himself up for further disappointment? "Can we really try?" he pressed, his voice barely above a whisper now. The question, tinged with urgency, hung in the air, demanding an answer both he and she were terrified to voice. She stammered, her hands trembling as they twisted together. "I don't know how. I've spent so long trying to escape my own demons, Jason. It has never been easy for me." Her sorrowful admission struck him harder than he expected. He had always seen her through the lens of abandonment and betrayal, but now, for the first time, he sensed a shared humanity in their struggle. He wanted to dive deeper, to unearth the unspoken truths that lay buried beneath their hurt. "What demons?" he asked, a subtle shift urging curiosity rather than judgment into his voice. She hesitated, the fight slowly evaporating from her demeanor. "The demons of regret, shame, fear," she murmured, glancing down at her feet, as if they might offer her an escape route. "I thought leaving was the answer to my problems. I thought it was the only way to protect you from my failures." Jason's chest tightened. He had nightmares of his childhood stitched together by her absence, yet he had never once considered the emotional toll it must have taken on her. "But protecting me from your failures only gave me a different set of problems to face," he countered, allowing the confusion and hurt to seep into his tone. "I had to figure out my own way without you. Many times, it almost broke me." He could see the realization dawning on her, unraveling the narrative she had crafted around her choices. Moments like these demanded honesty, yet every confession felt like a step into an abyss. "I want you to know that I'm trying," she finally said, her voice shaking but steadying with resolve. "Not just for you, but for myself. I can't change the past, but I can try to do better now. Can we start there?" The glimmer of determination in her eyes ignited something within Jason. Suddenly, the notion of rekindling their bond didn't seem so daunting. After all, wasn't that how growth began, through the acknowledgement of pain? He took a measured breath, feeling the ground beneath him shift ever so slightly. "Yes, but it won't be easy," he said, the edges of his voice sharpening with cautious optimism. "I need you to be present, not only physically, but emotionally. I can't navigate this if you still carry those demons alone." The flicker of fear returned to her demeanor, and for a moment Jason questioned whether he had asked too much. "I fear you may be disappointed again," she admitted. "What if I fall short?" "There's nothing more disappointing than silence," he replied, his conviction bolstered now. "I'd rather have an honest conversation filled with mistakes than one where we tiptoe around the truth. The only way forward is together." He could see her swallowing hard, her walls slowly crumbling as vulnerability seeped through. It was in that exchange that Jason didn't just want to redefine their relationship, but also his understanding of themselves as flawed human beings working toward redemption. As they prepared to step into uncertain territory, he saw an opportunity for both. The presence of dialogue burned where once there had only been echoes of pain. "If we're going to move forward, we need to confront the real issues. The hurt, the betrayal, everything," Jason continued, pushing himself to hold her gaze. "We need to be raw and real. Are you ready for that?" Her trembling breath was the only answer he needed. In that charged moment, they stood on the edge of transformation, concealing the fear of slipping back into a silent void. What lay ahead threatened to expose deeper scars, temptations, or perhaps revelations that would change not just their dynamics, but their very essence. Jason dared to hope that confrontation of the past might just bring forth the strength needed for a new beginning. But with each step forward, he felt the heaviness in his chest build. Could unveiling those truths lead to estrangement rather than connection? As the air tightened around them, Jason's thoughts spun. What would they uncover about themselves that they weren't prepared to face? Jason walked away from his mother's apartment, a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration coursing through him. They had opened a door, stripped it of its hinges to reveal the weighty skeletons of both their pasts. They had embraced the raw truth, something he had longed for yet feared in equal measure. For the first time in years, he felt the burdens of unvoiced regrets begin to lift, albeit slowly. He had demanded clarity, and in return he was met with the intricate realities of familial love interwoven with pain. He recalled her words, "I thought leaving was the only way to protect you." Suddenly, those words took on a different tone. They were not merely excuses, rather they were the echoes of a woman who had struggled, bearing the heavy chains of her own failures. Days turned into weeks, and with each passing moment, Jason continued to confront the shadows of his upbringing. He began to prioritize open conversations with not just his mother but within himself. The silences that pockmarked their shared history transformed into avenues for connection. Their dialogues shifted from blame to understanding and, most crucially, to healing. Utilizing the skills he acquired in Silicon Valley, Jason structured a plan that encompassed personal growth while simultaneously uplifting Linda. They began to explore community projects together, utilizing Rachel's expertise. Each project, a small commitment to rekindle the love that had long been dormant, became a stepping stone toward forgiveness. The neighborhoods Jason once saw only as derelict started to morph into spaces promising potential. Together, they reshaped how they viewed their world. Jason's heart brimmed with an innate desire to approach his own sense of identity. He no longer regarded success merely as climbing the corporate ladder or building wealth in the tech industry. Instead, true success manifested as a deep understanding of himself, his roots, and the willingness to confront failures with grace. Every achievement gained through the knowledge he shared with his mother became a testament to resilience, both hers and his own. In parallel, the community began to respond to their efforts, as Jason collaborated with local businesses to create job opportunities and self-help programs. He felt an unexpected surge of fulfillment wash over him. The recognition he once sought in the glimmering skylines of Silicon Valley paled long ago compared to witnessing the tangible changes in people's lives. Each grateful smile made him realize he was reclaiming not just a community, but his own sense of purpose. "I won't let your sacrifices be in vain," Jason told Linda during one of their sessions. He meant it. He stood there, resolute, defying the feeling that he owed her nothing. In fighting for her dignity, he found his own. On a particularly bright afternoon, as they wrapped up a community outreach event together, an unexpected moment crystallized their transformation. Jason found himself standing on the makeshift stage, one he had fully envisioned, a far cry from the dreams of monetizing algorithms. As he shared their story, he felt liberated, as if unearthing a long-buried truth. "You see, it's not just about the failures, it's about how we choose to rise from them. My mother taught me that our stories don't define us, our actions do," he declared to the small crowd. Applause erupted, and in that instant, Jason felt a surge of confidence ignite inside him. Recognition wasn't tied to his career or the glamour of his past. It blossomed through connection, vulnerability, and meaningful contributions. Months later, standing side by side with his mother amid the applause, Jason reflected on the powerful journey they had undertaken. They had forged a bond from splintered pieces, both recognizing that true success lay in wisdom built from scars, the courage to confront tumultuous truths, and the recognition of their intertwined paths forward. He realized he had not only found a voice through reconnecting with Linda, but had crafted an established position within his community, fueled not by profit, but by purpose. Jason had conquered the worst of his past, by genuinely embracing and striving to become more than merely a product of it. He had emerged as a beacon of change, navigating futures intertwined with hope. In the bright, bustling atmosphere, Jason beamed with pride, acknowledging their growth and the essence of clarity illuminated in their shared journey. They stood transformed, solid confidence radiating from both of them, having faced their reality and emerged stronger. His heart swelled with satisfaction, not only for having helped forge a vital connection with Linda, but also as a reflection of his growth. Together they had accomplished a journey of profound understanding, healing, and growth. Struggles became stepping stones that had ultimately paved the way for a brighter future. As the sunlight streamed down and laughter painted the air, Jason understood the journey had only just begun. The bonds they nurtured and the light they embodied held the promise of what was to come. Now, more than ever, he realized, he was more than just a son rediscovering his mother. He was Jason Mitchell, a force of change. Together, they embraced their truths, walking arm in arm toward a shared horizon of endless possibility. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss these transformative stories as they unfold. Leave a like now to help us keep bringing you powerful narratives. Every click counts. Comment below and let us know your thoughts about Jason's journey, theories on what comes next, or share your own stories. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need inspiration to overcome their own challenges. You won't regret it. This is the moment to show your support and be part of our growing community dedicated to personal triumphs and genuine connections. Don't wait even one more second to share.